Hello and welcome back to yet another interview on this channel. Today is an interview I'm not used to doing, but I had the opportunity to talk with the guy who made the soundtrack for the new Trackmania. Personally, a fan of it, but I don't know too much about it, so this can be interesting to hear about. But Elliot, first of all, welcome to an interview here. How are you, man?
Dude, I'm good. Thanks for stepping out of your usual, I guess, comfort zone and talking about the music. I'm excited.
Yeah. And can you just tell people, so we get a somewhat of an insight of who you are? I don't think people have heard about you in the Trackmania scene. Tell us, who are you and what do we need to know about you?
Yeah, my name's Elliot Callighan. I'm a composer and sound designer for media, primarily games. But in terms of Trackmania, you've probably heard the name Ramova if you've paid attention to, the music that you were listening to. That's my artist moniker name, basically any sort of like electronic, dance sort of music. I use that moniker for it. And so, yeah, I did the score for the recent Trackmania.
But if you talk about you making music now, but let's move back in time. Have you followed Trackmania? Did you know about Trackmania before this Trackmania? Have you done any work with Trackmania before, or?
Yeah, I knew about the existence of Trackmania and played it very little years ago because past composer for other Trackmania titles, Professor Click, he and I actually went to school for music together. So I knew him when he had the opportunity to start writing for Trackmania, and I remember him being like, "This is so cool," and like the music that he was making for it. So that was how I first learned about Trackmania.
But can you tell people, I have not asked the game developers about this. I have never knew that this was an opportunity that I was going to do an interview about it. But can you tell us, how is this deal coming together? Do you reach out to Nadeo and saying, hey, I have an idea about the soundtrack? Do they reach out to your company personally? How is this deal all starting to get together?
Yeah, so I was present on, I forget if it was like a game music forum or it might have actually been a Facebook group, but someone from Nadeo's sound department just put the call out and said, hey, we need someone to do music for the Trackmania series. We're looking for stuff that's kind of in this vein. And I sent them a playlist of about 10 or 12 tracks that I had written previously that fit that description, and luckily they thought they sounded good.
But is there some sort of competition? How is the process of actually getting the deal? Is it like once you go to a job interview that maybe you do one interview and they like you and then maybe you get a call back? How is it to eventually get in touch with them to actually getting the deal?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's different for every particular scenario. Some companies are, really trying to get something very, very quickly, and some are, just have a longer runway to work with. For Trackmania, I actually sent in all of the sort of audition or music materials maybe a month and a half before I actually received word back. And it was kind of out of the blue. Like literally, I'd been messaging them, said, yeah, we'll let you know. And, if you're a working composer, there's lots of times where you send in your audition and they say they'll let you know and then they don't get back to you. That's just what happens a lot of the time. And then just out of the blue one day, I heard back and they said, hey, yeah, so listen to your stuff. We thought it was really good. We want to work with you. But, there was like a month and a half where I just crickets. So it was a really, really fantastic thing to wake up to one day, to have that message waiting.
Yeah, can you tell people, have you made music for other games? Or you mentioned that you are an EDM artist, but have you made anything related to games before?
Oh, yeah. Games are the primary medium that I write for. Like I've written for like commercials and like some Marvel superhero trailers and stuff like that. But most stuff I've worked on has been games. I think another recent title that is pretty cool, people should check out if they're into VR gaming at all, is Furious Seas. It's basically VR pirate ship combat. And it looks beautiful. It's really fun. And if you want something that sounds very different than Trackmania, check that out.
But then you get the deal. Did you already have some sort of vision about what sort of music you wanted to create before you eventually got the official yes, or was it that they were saying, hey, we want sort of this kind of, how is the actual process of creating the music going? Is it your idea? Is it they say what they want? How is this going? How is this working?
Yeah, it's kind of a bit of back and forth. Sometimes ultimately the developer, what they want, like, that wins. You know what I mean? Like, you're making music for them and you're trying to make their vision happen. So if they have a preference or an idea, like, you're going to do it. What was awesome about Nadeo is I think they really looked at, all the tracks that I sent them were just stuff that I had done for fun, not particular projects before. And I think that that's something that they really tried to do when they were picking people, was say, hey, this is an aesthetic or a feel that they naturally live in. So, like, they're just going to be having fun while they're writing the music. They're not necessarily going to be just like making the thing only for us, right? And, I think you get the best results when everyone involved is just literally doing it for the sake of how much fun they're having while they're doing it. So, those tracks that I sent in, I think they fit in with the aesthetic of Trackmania. They liked it, and they said this is going to be related, but it's also not exactly the same. He's going to put his own spin on it, and it's just going to be another evolution and progression of the same style and aesthetic. So for the most part, they said, write some cool stuff, man. We'll let you know if it doesn't work. And there were only maybe 2 times where they had notes that were really in conflict with what I wanted to do. So overall, it was a really great experience, really fluid.
But then so most of it is up to you. Do you like that you have this freedom, or would you more prefer that maybe you had a specific, like, this is what we do, maybe get a song, like, say, do the same style like this? What is your personal preference?
So I always like to get references, just because communication is a really hard and significant part of the process, especially if you're working with people that don't regularly talk about audio or music. Like, just literally things like saying, well, something needs to be lower. Like, well, what does that mean? Does that mean like a darker emotion? Does it mean quieter? Does it mean lower pitch? Like, there's, so if you don't normally talk about it, like, it can be really cumbersome and confusing. So I all the time say, send me a link to the thing that is what you want, or that you can point to and say, I mean this thing here. And Nadeo did that, especially for the main menu music. They were telling me that they wanted something kind of Olympic and regal, which you can take that a number of different ways. But then they sent me links to other tracks that they felt had that Olympic quality to it. So then I could say, all right, so this is what Olympic is to you. And now I can hear what that is. Now I can kind of pick that apart, analyze it, and see how and why it has that aesthetic. And now I can incorporate that and kind of have this framework and these building blocks for making something for my version of an Olympic track.
And then if you are to look back at it, how was the process of actually making the music? Did it end up somewhat what you expected? Was it an easy process? Did you have some days where, like, what am I doing? How is this going to be finished? How was the process itself?
Yeah, it was really on a track by track basis, really. Some tracks I had the initial idea, and then within 3 or 4 days it was done. And there was one track in particular, Vegas Grease is what it's called, that one track took me, I think, 2 weeks, if not maybe even a little longer. And I really couldn't tell you why, other than it was a sound design thing. Like, the actual music itself and the composition I felt was really there, but I just couldn't get a sound designed or a synth patch created that I was happy with. And so I kept doing everything else besides creating that one sound that I knew I eventually had to do. And I did everything else, and then finally I had to go back to creating that one sound. And even then I was banging my head against the wall, and then had to go and listen to a bunch of other stuff and listen to the qualities of their synths and their sounds just to help give me ideas and inspiration before I finally was able to get it. But I also had a ton of really weird influences. Like, I was trying to do stuff with like Crystal Method combined with Primus, combined with Daft Punk, combined with like just weird, because I'm just a weird dude, I guess. So yeah, that was definitely the most difficult track to write, but it was really it varied a lot in terms of how long and how hard it was to write some of the stuff.
I guess if you sort of make a what to say, separate or comparison with the actual Trackmania community, I think this is maybe like building a track in Trackmania. Like you are creative, but some parts you struggle with. And mappers in Trackmania, they often maybe build a map together, send a map to a friend, and say, "Hey, can you help me here?" Did you have any friends that maybe helped you out, gave you some inspiration, or has this been just you?
So I got some production help from some other members of my company, Unlock Audio, where it was just, hey, I'm getting close to a deadline. I've got this. Can you help me mix this thing? So luckily having some other music and audio folks like in a company with me that also just focuses on games was really helpful and convenient. But on the, I guess, like composition or artistic and style side of things, I definitely go back and say, again, the time that I spent in school with Professor Click, like we were good friends when we were in school. Like we even played DJ sets together, and talked about making music and how like the best ways to go about that and different techniques and stuff like that. So he and I think have a very different aesthetic, but even just being around each other, there's no way that someone else's musical aesthetic, if you're around them a lot, doesn't rub off on you. And you're just around it. So then when you're confronted with, hey, you need to write something that's related to this or put your own spin on it, it's possible because it's not something you're completely separated from and unaware of.
Sort of made an assumption that maybe people know about the soundtrack itself, but can you tell people the main things you need to know about it? You mentioned different tracks. Can you tell people how long is the soundtrack, how many tracks is it? What do people that maybe haven't heard it, what do they need to know about it?
Got it. So it's just less than 40 minutes long. And most of it is for the actual racing, like actual gameplay, right? I think one thing to pay attention to, or like if you're really trying to active listen to it, is I almost always try and combine my 3 favorite genres of music whenever I can. And my 3 favorite genres are classical, electronic, and metal. So whenever there's any way that I can even abstractly combine these things, like I always try and do it. So there's like an example, there's a breakdown in the track Chassis, which was the piece of music that was used for the announcement trailer back in, I think, February. But a little bit further on, there's a breakdown in it, and it just gets dark, it gets real aggressive, and it's still using all these electronic synths and elements, but honestly, if you just replaced the synth with a guitar and had someone screaming over it, like it's a metal breakdown. So that's example number 1. Example number 2, classical and electronic Infusion, the track editor piece of music. I originally had all these electronic elements, but I had a much more, I think, luscious and extensive piece of music that was doing a lot of things akin to like late 19th century Russian composers, and I still kept a lot of the same chord structure and feel like that, but after talking to Nadeo, they actually had me strip back a lot of it because it was kind of grabbing the player's attention when they should be focusing on making these tracks, right? It should help them focus, and it should give a good feeling for that process, as opposed to saying, hey, pay attention to me instead of the track and what you're doing. But even the track that's in there now, it has a lot of electronic elements, and a lot of the harmonies have this almost like regal, romantic quality to them as well. So again, combining classical and electronic, combining metal, like anytime I can combine those things, I'm trying to do it. And I'm sure there's tons of other examples throughout the score that I'm just not thinking of right now.
But as a creative person myself, once I maybe do a video, maybe I do an interview, and then I look back at it, I see, oh, maybe I should have done this differently. Are you somewhat of the same guy that maybe now that the soundtrack is out, are you still listening to it and like, damn, I should have done this now that you look at it in the perspective?
Yeah, there's two spots in particular that really stick out to me. It's too late. I can't change them, and it's not like they sound bad, but me being, you're your own worst critic. So if I could, I would go back and change these two spots, but I'm not gonna say what they are. I don't want people.
But a lot of attention in Trackmania at the moment is that a lot of big streamers are streaming it. We have crazy numbers for being such a, let's say, a small game. You have XQC streaming it, Lyric, Soda Pop in. Are you feeling somewhat happy that you see these big streamers showcasing it and you're listening to it and like, yeah, that's my music in the background there?
Yeah, I mean, I honestly, when I was watching a couple streams and people were working on tracks and racing and the streamers themselves began like humming the music and like getting into it while they're playing, and even just seeing the comments that people post online of like, this is so cool, or like, where can I find this track? It's really nice and validating. Like, I worked on that stuff for a while, and I've been writing music and developing it as a skill since I was 4 years old. I started playing violin when I was 4, so it's kind of nice to know that all wasn't a waste of time. You know what I mean?
But do you feel like you mentioned that there's positive feedback, and that is also the feeling I have once people listening to the soundtrack. The first thing once we heard it was like, where can I find the full version? And now that the game is out and you can find the soundtrack, people are like, yeah, I really like it. Yesterday I was on Reddit, the subreddit for Trackmania, and it was like a DJ digging the music, and they had put the soundtrack over it, so it's like he was actually DJing the soundtrack music. But how much does this mean to you that the community that you made the music for is actually happy about what you created?
I mean, it's everything, honestly. Again, it's like, it's been the reason why I've gotten up in the morning for a very long time now, and I won't go into the whole life story, but it's been the only thing that I've wanted to do my entire life, and to see that people are responding to it that well is amazing. Sorry for the sirens outside.
Not the best soundtrack there, but yeah. What can you do? But I personally am so positive about this new game. I think this is maybe the Trackmania that can make Trackmania mainstream. How much do you care about if Trackmania becomes successful? Are you happy that you just got the opportunity, or would it mean something more to you? Let's say that if this game becomes one of the main titles in the esport world.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a huge potential for as much as this hasn't happened already, right? I think that there's huge potential for games being and Trackmania included, being the driving force of just pop culture and culture in general moving forward, right? I think there's still a lot of people that are either resisting it or still haven't accepted that that's really what it is. But one of the reasons why I'm so excited about writing and working in games is because I feel like there's so much that's unexplored about the medium, right? Like, it's either in its golden age or it's just about to come into it, I personally think. And so that was one of the things that I wanted to do with the score was, I want to make Trackmania awesome, but I also want to make it something where someone just wants to listen to it for the sake of listening to it on their own and just like have a party listening to this stuff. And games and Trackmania, I think, are going to be a huge vehicle for getting a lot of that stuff to a larger audience. And so if it's Trackmania, if it's other games, I would love it if it's Trackmania. I love the aesthetic and I love playing it. By the way, I got like 6 top 7 in Illinois records right now going in Trackmania. So, I've been playing, and for those other 6 people in Illinois, you suck, but I'm coming. Yeah.
Yeah, we mentioned that you made a soundtrack for it and how popular the game is, but now you mentioned that you are a player. Can you tell us, if you look besides the music itself, how do you feel that Trackmania is for maybe a somewhat of a new driver itself? How is Trackmania for you?
I mean, it was insanely addicting, honestly. I had played it before and I thought it was cool and fun, but that was however many titles back. And to play it now, even without my music present in it, I after about 5 minutes, I realized how it's twofold, because it's this like incredible frustration, but you can't not play it and try and beat yourself. You know what I mean? Like it's insanely addicting. And being able to play against the ghosts of other players and whatnot, yeah, it just sucks you in, man. And it got me.
You're not the first one, so yeah, I guess somewhat of excuse there. But if you look into the future, the developer says that this is at least the last title. They don't know if there's going to be more environments, but has this project given you more motivation to maybe say, if Nadeo hits you up in the future, say, yes, I will actually love to make another soundtrack for another environment or even another Trackmania game?
Oh yeah, I'd love to do that. I mean, the style and aesthetic is one I love to write in. Again, especially on the metal side of things, anything that gets you amped up, that makes you want to mosh, just makes you want to have some sort of like positive energy outlet. Like, I'm all for it. That's what I love doing. So, Trackmania definitely fits that. If Nadeo came to me and said, "Hey, we want more music," yes, I'm in. Let's do this. It'd be amazing.
I appreciate you taking the time to explain to me. I hope I was somewhat understanding about what you were talking about. At least I felt that I know more about it now. But for people that might know or might want to follow you, might want to hear more about your stuff, can you tell people where can they find you on social media and platforms where you can listen to music?
Oh yeah, sure. So the best place would be for just my music individually. I have a SoundCloud where I post kind of anything and everything that I'm allowed to. So if you go to soundcloud.com/Ramova, I've got, I think, just over 200 tracks there. It goes way back. So if you want to hear me when I really didn't know what I was doing, scroll all the way to the bottom. But other than that, yeah, I write primarily for games with my company, Unlock Audio. We do any and all sort of audio or music and implementation tasks for games. So it's me. We've also got another awesome composer, John Robert Mance. He's won a ton of awards for stuff he's done. We've got George Huffnagel, who's like the most incredible voice and vocal person. I'm just thankful that he gets as pumped about like character performances in any of them as I do for writing music for Trackmania. And then we've got Chris Prunoto, who again is just like the beast audio technical generalist sound designer. And yeah, we're just doing tons of game sound and music stuff. So if you want to check us out, unlockaudio.com. Got newsletters, got YouTube videos, check them all out.
I really appreciate you taking the time, and I appreciate you more making the soundtrack. I enjoy it even though I don't understand music, so I guess that's somewhat of a compliment, right?
I'll take it. Thanks.
But yeah, thank you so much for stepping up and explaining to the Trackmania community how this soundtrack all come together.
For sure. Thanks so much for having me.
Bye-bye.
Bye.